In a few months, RuneScape will see the release of Amascut, the first real group boss in many years. If you want to be there to make some insane money or snag some of the extremely powerful drops, now is the time to start preparing. In this video, we will cover everything you need to know to prepare for this new update. Let's dive in. Amascut will be a brand new boss fight planned for release after summer. The Amascut boss fight marks the end of the desert questline, which means that the one hard requirement to get started with this boss will be to complete the upcoming Eclipse of the Heart quest, as well as all the requirements for it. Eclipse of the Heart is currently not released yet as of the recording of this video, but you can already prepare for it by completing the Pharaoh's Folly quest, as well as the ones preceding it. Amascut will be a group boss that you can take on in normal mode and hard mode, as well as a super difficult special mode that will be available on release. If you are successful in beating the boss, you'll be able to get your hands on some of the new best in slot weapons and armor sets. First up, we have a brand new Necromancy arm guard for the Necromancy enjoyer. This is set to improve your soul abilities while being the same tier as the Raziel Necromancy guard, making it a different approach to combat that might be better in different situations. Perhaps more excitingly though, we also have a new tier 95 melee weapon coming in with halberd range. This will mark the first time that we finally see an upgrade over the Noxious Scythe, which has remained best in slot in this category for over a decade as it released in 2014. This weapon is going to be an insane upgrade for Slayer, and perhaps even bossing depending on what type of effects it has. But then finally, for people who enjoy magic like myself, we have the real exciting stuff. We are getting a brand new armor set, based on the boss itself. We really don't know much about this armor set just yet, but if its effect is anywhere near as good as the Elite Dracolich set for ranged, this might bring magic back on top as the best combat style in the game. All of these drops are sure to be worth tons of GP, so if you want to earn some gold or just want to upgrade for yourself, let me show you how I am preparing for this boss so you can do the same. But before we do that, let me tell you about this video's sponsor, intotheam. Intotheam is currently throwing a site-wide sale of up to 60% off on their clothing. You've probably heard of them before and seen some of their iconic graphic tees before, but it turns out that they have a lot more than that on offer. They even have a selection of activewear clothing that I am absolutely in love with. So breathable and so comfy. As you can see, I also picked up a few jackets and I absolutely love the materials on every single one of these clothing pieces. The level of comfort and quality is honestly way higher than anything I've ever experienced from similarly priced clothing that I can find in stores around me. If you're like me and you don't like shopping for clothes in person, but still want some clothing that looks great and fits well, then intotheam has you covered. And on top of that, you can use the link in the description or code REX10 at checkout for an additional 10% off any order, and that code stacks with the large sales going on right now. So this is the perfect time to stock up on your wardrobe. Thanks to intotheam for sponsoring this video. To prepare for a boss like this, you have to stock up on supplies. And as we don't really know what type of boss this will be exactly, you'll have to cover all the bases. Personally, I am stocking up at least around 100 hours of each of these PVM supplies. That will more than likely last me long enough to grind out all the different items I want from the boss. So for example, vulnerability bombs, which last around a minute in combat, I will aim to make at least 6,000 of them, which will give me plenty of time to focus on the boss without having to be distracted by making or gathering supplies. As a main, of course, it is way more simple to just buy the supplies, but it is still very worth stocking up right now as the prices are sure to go up massively when the boss actually releases. First, let's talk about summoning familiars. Personally, I am stocking up on a few. First up, we have the Hellhound. This thing is amazing to absorb damage and very good for learning bosses. I used this thing a ton when I was learning Zamorak, and it is a lifesaver. You can also consider pack mammoths and yaks if you want to be able to bring tons of food, but those are really easy to make, so I'm not stocking up on a ton of them myself. The next two I am making a ton of, as well as their respective scrolls, and those of course are the Calgarian demons for critical chance and the Ripper demons for base damage. Calgarian demon is the one I expect to use the most, as I tend to use magic as my favorite combat style, and if it is at all viable at Amascut, it is probably the style that I will be rocking. The Ripper demon though is a very good choice for any other combat style, as it pumps out a ton of damage. You can also consider stocking up on some Blood Reavers, although with the recent nerfs of it, I haven't really used it anywhere, so I am personally not making a ton of these. Next up, let's talk about bombs. I mentioned vulnerability bombs earlier, and these are of course insanely useful at any PvM scenario. They are a straight up 10% free damage increase, possibly one of the most overpowered items you can get. I also am stocking up on a bunch of sticky bombs, however. It is very possible that these are not useful at all, but if there is a scenario like Talos where you want to stun minions, then these are very nice to have. Next up, let's talk about runes. As I love to use magic, I am going to be getting all the runes I need for all the spells I could ever want, including lunar spell switches, and time runes of course for temporal anomaly. Of course, you should also get a bunch of necromancy runes. Necromancy is an incredibly useful and strong style at almost every PvM scenario, so it will be great at Amascut, I am sure. But even if you don't intend to use the style, it is still very much worth getting, so you can use bone shields and darkness if you choose to do so. As a necromancer, you will also want to stock up on ectoplasm to ensure you can use your summons as much as you want. Next up, I am stocking up on dreadnips. If you don't know what these are, you can get them from the Dominion Tower minigame, and these are essentially tiny little creatures that you can spawn, and they will stun your opponent. If Amascut or any of the minions are stunnable, these might be useful to have. Next up is food. There are two types of food that you should stock up on as much as you can. First up is solid type foods. These will be useful especially when you're learning the boss, as they will allow you to have as much healing as possible in your inventory. The best food to get is of course rocktails, sailfish, and the soup varieties. There are some other options, but to me they're not really worth making. But of course, once you are starting to get more comfortable at the boss, you are probably gonna want to use blubberfish as your food. These have a bit of a trade-off. You get less healing, but you also don't lose adrenaline when you use these. Beyond food, of course, you're gonna want to have some potions. Most importantly, make the best overloads that you can. For me, this is gonna be the Elder Overloads. And personally, I'm turning all my Elder Overloads into Elder Overload selves. Doing so will make sure that I'm essentially covered for any Dragonfire, Poison, or even Prayer Renewal potions that we might need during the boss fight without having to drink them separately. You can of course make these potions separately and take them without combining them into the overload if you prefer. Next up, I am making two types of adrenaline potions. The Adrenaline Renewal, which gives the most adrenaline at the cost of taking some time, and the normal upgraded adrenaline potions, which give slightly less adrenaline but in one go. I'm also making a ton of Cerebrews and Super Cerebrews and Guthix Rests, as these are great for healing as well, as you can drink them for some healing at the same time as food, making them perfect for combo eating. Similarly to the Blubberfish, Guthix Rests are a alternative that heal a little bit less without draining your stats like Cerebrews do. Next up, I want to make sure to cover my prayer points, and the way I am doing that is by doing daily Golden Rose runs to get as much penance powder as I can. On top of that, I'm getting a ton of extreme prayer potions to ensure I have plenty of prayer potions to put into my blessed flask. I'm also making sure I have a ton of power burst potions, specifically power burst of vitality, which is useful in almost any dangerous boss fight, but also acceleration, which can be useful in certain movement-based mechanics. And finally, one often overlooked by myself supply that I have to get a ton of are pages. Most specifically Grimoire pages, as these are likely the ones I will be using, but also full pages, jazz pages, and Wen pages, which might be useful depending on styles and situations. but I already have plenty of those. With that covered though, let's jump into the game and have a look at our gear. Alright, welcome to Menafos, where stuff is gonna be going down soon with the arrival of Amascut. Let's look at the gear that I have and the gear that I still am planning to get to prepare for this boss fight, so you guys can get an idea of what you should probably aim for. Alright, I'm gonna be covering my preparation style by style, because we don't currently know just yet which styles will be best here. So for now, we are assuming that all styles will be viable. I'm doing my best to prepare for each style, so that if one style is significantly better, then I'll just be able to swap to that one. But this is my starting set, which is the one that I estimate I will be using. First up, we have Crypt Bloom, full Crypt Bloom, perked up, and this really is insanely powerful for learning bosses. You can throw this on, put on Animate Dead, and you just become so insanely tanky, it is just unbelievable. I don't expect I will be using this much past learning the boss, but it is an incredibly useful set to have if you are not very comfortable with high level PvM, and especially to learn a boss for the first time. Of course, beyond learning the boss, we have Elite Tectonic, which is now upgraded with the critical strike chance, making magic the powerhouse that it is today. I also have these boots and gloves, Carapax wrist wraps, and the Blast Diffusion boots, which are great, but now I might swap them out with Masterwork occasionally, which, as you can see, I have 3 pieces of Masterwork here. This is a brand new set that I've just made, and it is incredibly strong as well. Not quite strong enough to leave out the Tectonic, but it can be worth mixing and matching to get a bit of more survivability, because this set basically allows you to reduce your damage intake, or at least offset it in a way that you can survive big hits more easily. Next up are of course the weapons. I have a standard set of Sanctum weapons, which are of course insanely powerful, especially if you combo it with a Fractured Staff of Armadyl and use them both in rotation. I also have a Corroming Switch in case that is useful. Then of course the Channeler's Ring in case we don't have high accuracy, and the Reaver's Ring is useful for any style really. And then finally we have the Inquisitor Staff, probably not going to be useful, but in case it is there. Moving on to Necromancy. Again, a lot of best in slot here, because really this is gonna be an incredibly endgame boss, and you probably want to get as close as you can to these best in slot items. So for Necromancy, that is of course going to be the full set of the Raziel armor, put on the best in slot perks, you can find them on the wiki, but also a Death Warden set can be nice in case you want to go for some learning. This is especially nice, you can just bring it as a swap in case there's like a mechanic that deals a lot of damage or a phase or something like that. You can swap out your armor to survive it. That is something you can do to learn a boss. Of course, weapons are also the Raziel weapons. Necromancy truly is kind of simple as far as gear goes. So try to get the Raziel armor, try to get the Raziel weapons, and then the Zorgoth Soul Ring, which you can get from a quest activity. Or alternatively, you can get the other ring that you can get from the Rex Matriarchs. I don't have it though, as I prefer the Zorgoth's ring for the most part. I like the extra residual soul stacks. Now, melee is a bit interesting because, as you can see, there's a lot more to it. First of all, I don't really use melee that much, so the biggest thing I need to prep for as far as melee goes is that I just have to use the style more and actually get comfy with it, because right now I'm not really much of an expert. But essentially, the gear that I have here is the Zamorak Vestments of Havoc, a full set of course, which is not including gloves, so instead of those gloves we are using the enhanced gloves of Passage. And of course we also have the Jaws of the Abyss, which you can swap between if you want for optimal adrenaline gain and usage. On top of that, I also have the custom trimmed fitted Masterwork melee set, which of course is nice if you want to have a bit more survivability going. On top of that, we have the weapons, which these are quite interesting really, because there's a lot here. First of all, we have the Exekil. It just recently got buffed, and this is an incredibly powerful melee weapon now. Next up, we have the Masterwork Spear. This thing is great for all your bleed abilities, and very worthwhile having still, I think. Actually, I'm not super sure, because I used to mainly use it for the Exekil spec, but now, of course, that is different. Maybe some of the melee professionals can comment down below if this is still worth using for other bleed abilities, but it might be a bit sweaty, so I just have it. It might be worth having, but it might have kind of fallen off recently. Next up, we have the Sliver of Lang and the Dark Shard of Lang. A set, of course, of dual melee weapons, which is very powerful and might be useful to swap between the EZK and this, depending on if you want to use the specs or not, but it might be very rotation dependent on what the boss is like. And then finally, we have actually two more things, which is, first of all, the Noxious Scythe, in case there is some sort of a AoE scenario where you want to be able to AoE things. This thing will be great to have. Of course, you can upgrade it with the drop you get from the boss itself, but on release, this might be worth having. And then finally, we have the Keris. This thing, when upgraded, works in the Sanctum of Rebirth, and considering it's kind of Amascut themed, I think it is not unreasonable to suspect that this might be useful at Amascut herself as well. And this weapon is incredibly powerful when you're using it. Although it also kind of fell off since the EZK got updated, it might still be worth having, especially if you do not have an EZK. Ranged is pretty simple. Really, if you have it, you're gonna want to go with the Elite Dracolich armor. This is insanely powerful and maybe the strongest armor set and effect in the game, I think. It is insane, it's very strong. Of course, that goes with the Bow of the Last Guardian, and then on top of that, I do have some chins and a crossbow set, which mainly would be used in case there's some AoE scenario, or I want to have the bolt effects like the Hydrix bolts for the adrenaline effect that they give, and then of course the accompanying Stalker's Ring in case we don't have the accuracy we need to use the Reaver's Ring. And finally, let's look at some additional stuff that is very worth having, of course, regardless of what style you are using. First up, we have the Zuk Cape. You can get separate versions of this, but if you have the combined version, that is of course perfect, as it is for all styles. This is almost like a requirement these days for the very high end of PvM. Super strong, super powerful, you're gonna wanna get this. Next up, I have some books. I expect to use the Grimoire the most. This is of course very powerful. The other books here, the full book, the jazz book, are very strong as well, especially when you're not using magic. These actually do hold up quite well these days. And then finally, the Wen book, not super useful, but can be useful if there's a lot of AoE scenarios. Next up, we have the Ring of Death. This thing is so good. It's a bit slept on. It is very worth having, especially if the boss is difficult to learn and there are mechanics that you consistently die to. Consider just throwing this thing on as soon as you enter a difficult phase, because even if you die, you at least get to survive a little bit longer, see a little bit more of the fight. You can maybe record your gameplay and look back at things and see where you went wrong. This is like the learner's dream, to be honest. You can improve at PvM so much by using this ring. Whether it is using it entirely, just continuing to camp it, or when you expect to enter a difficult part of a boss, let's say the last phase of Nakatra, and you're learning it, you just put on the ring, and you can survive much longer than you would think otherwise. Luck of the Dwarves, of course, luck ring. It's as simple as that. Get a bit of a boost to your RNG, not much more to it than that. And then finally we have our Essences of Finality, which I have a bunch of. Okay, I went ahead and sorted them by style to make things a bit more easy, but the first one is Necromancy, and of course the only one you want here is the Death Guard. Very powerful spec, very worthwhile putting in an EOF if you have it. Next up we have Melee, which I only have the Dragon Claws now and the Statius Warhammer. I actually have one more EOF in the bank, that I can use in case something turns out to be really powerful at this specific boss. This used to be my EZK EOF, but of course now that got refunded with the EZK update. Next up we also have the Statius Warhammer, which is very good to increase your accuracy, and it can be used with any style. You can just use it at the beginning of the fight and then swap to magic if that is what you prefer, but it is very strong when you have low accuracy at a boss. Next up we have Ranged, which this really is the EOF style for me. We have the Decimation. This is probably not going to be useful, but in case some very niche AoE scenario exists, this might be useful. Next up we have the Saradomin Bow. This is essentially a weaker dark bow. Similar usage, you would use it as a dark bow, but it is weaker, but instead of dealing more damage, you heal yourself a little bit. So this can be useful when you are learning a boss and you just want a little bit more healing. I use this a lot when doing ranged Vorkath. Next up we have the trusty dark bow. If you get any ranged EOF, this probably is the one to go for first. It is cheap, it is powerful, and it hits hard. Next up is the Seren Godbow EOF. This is incredibly powerful as well, especially if the monster you are fighting is a large target, which Amascut might be, we don't know yet. And then finally the Eldritch Crossbow, the risky EOF that is insanely powerful. It stops you from soul splitting, but it increases your damage by a lot. Really worth having, especially once you get comfortable with the ranged style. Next up we have Magic, for which we have the classic Gothic Staff, a strong hit that also reduces the defense of the monster you are targeting. Very strong, very worthwhile having. But these days, a stronger hit is the Iban Staff that we have right here. The Iban Staff is super strong, super worth having. These days you have so much adrenaline when using Magic that you can actually almost replace the Gothic Staff that you used to use and use Iban Staff instead, which deals way more damage. Sometimes you might not have the adrenaline and you might want to go for a Gothic Staff, but honestly, sometimes I don't even bring this thing anymore. Next up we have the Armadil Battle Staff. This used to be super good for the Fesoa, but honestly, it fell off hard, so don't get this one. You probably will not get any use out of it. And then finally the Obliteration. Similarly, likely to not be useful unless there is a healing mechanic for the boss, similarly to Kazalam in the Sanctum. That is the reason I have this in an EOF. It is very useful there. So that is all the gear I have, and as you can see, I am quite prepared for this boss fight, but there are some things I don't have, so let's cover those, as you might want to get those as well. First up is that these tier 95s are all tier 95 weapons, extremely strong, but these days you can upgrade them to tier 100. I've actually done that for my necromancy weapons in specific, but all the others don't currently have this. The way you upgrade these is by getting a drop, or of course buying it, from the Sanctum of Rebirth, specifically from Nekatra Devourer Eternal. And as you can see, I have done 330 of these hard mode kills, and unfortunately only one shard of Genesis. So it is not due to a lack of trying that I do not have these upgrades. I am on the drop rate of having 4 of these shards, but only have a single one. Not so fun, I have to say, but I am grinding this and I will slowly, hopefully, get a few of these to upgrade my other styles. I have done Necromancy, because that was what I was using at Sanctum at the time. Currently I'm doing my Sanctum runs with Magic, so if I get another shard, I will probably put it on my Fesoa first. Then the next one I might save a little bit in case I want to put it on another style, but if I have only one other shard and Amascut drops, I will probably put it on my Magic set so that I have full tier 100. But then, of course, after that, I might put it on the Bow of the Last Guardian or the EZK first, depending on which style is more powerful. And then the very last one will likely be the Langs. But also, I have to keep in mind that the new Amascut boss will probably also require these shards to be upgraded. So, at this rate, it is looking like I will be at this boss for about 1,500 kills more. Let's hope my luck turns around. Beyond that though, I am also intending to get the full Masterwork Magic set in case it is useful to have to learn the boss or to kinda do it more safely. I only have 3 pieces right now, but I just have to get the other 2 to complete this set. I should also point out, of course, that I do have all of the upgrades that you can get on your account. Things like Greater Chain, Greater Ricochet, all of those passives and abilities I do have, and they are all very worth having, especially for the style that you intend to use. The one thing I do currently not have is from the Gate of Elitness, so let's have a look there. Right here, the Eclipsed Soul Prayer Codex. I don't expect it to be very good at Amascut, as Soul Split is just so incredibly worth having. But if it is useful, then I might have to get it. So I might try to chip away at some Gate of Elitness before Amascut drops, because it would be an awful grind to have to do in case it suddenly becomes very useful. And then finally, one more thing that I truly do not expect to be very useful, but I might try to chip away at it if I complete all those other things, is the Masterwork weapons. They now have an effect to heal yourself a little bit, and perhaps if the boss is way too difficult, I might be able to use that to get every little bit of healing and survivability I could get to get through my first kills. Again though, I don't think the 2% healing that those weapons provide will be making or breaking your first Amascut kills, so personally I'm not super hyped on getting those. And then finally, before I wrap up this video, I should say that of course this boss is a group fight, which means that one of the more tricky things is that you have to find people to do the boss with. And if that is something that sounds daunting to you, then join the Discord in the description. In that Discord, I'm sure we will be doing some group bossing as the boss releases, and we might prepare together as well, do some Solak to get some pages for the Grims, stuff like that. If you're interested in any of that group content, join my Discord and we might try to set up some team shenanigans. Without further ado, I do hope that gave you all the info you could need to get ready for Amascut and make this boss release the best you've ever had.